It shouldn't. I think we're good. Yeah. So we're live. And then let me push this button here.
That was awesome.
Thank you so much.
What a great intro.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm so excited for you to be here with us today, Blake. I am so thrilled that we were able to make the time to get this live stream done. So let me tell everyone who's watching this live stream right now or the replay how amazing, Blake, you are. I am so excited for you to be here because we just met recently, right? Maybe like a month or two ago from our friend Dr. Gina Anderson. And
Yes, who also amazing. Yes.
she is incredible. It was through her book launch. So I'm going to put in the show notes information about her books because definitely check that out. And when Blake was talking at her book launch, you were just amazing. I have to have this guy on the show. And so I am so thrilled for you to be here. Let me introduce you to our listeners. And my live stream, first of all, is just an opportunity for me to interview incredible leaders who are trailblazing and pioneering for a better tomorrow in our homes, community, and globally. And it's part of the Two Mamas to Love platform, focusing on different topics. And my book that's coming out in the summer is on Two Mamas to Love, pioneering a new kind of motherhood. And Blake is the founder of SpotOn and NoDwell. And he's actually in the trucking industry, which I thought was so cool. I'm like, let me talk with him about literal highways, as well as mental highways and back roads. So I want to share with you his background, which is 20 years in the trucking industry, veteran and a true pioneer, as well as committed to the revolutionizing the trucking logistics industry, setting a new standard in an industry ripe for change. And Blake, thanks again for being here. Really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I think it was very flattering. I'm not sure that I can take all that, but I have to. So thank you very much.
Well, I feel like whenever people introduce me, it's like, oh, I don't know. It's too much. But I really I think that what you're doing is so amazing. And tell us, what is it that your mission is? Why did you start your mission as well as start in the trucking industry to begin with?
Well, to go back to how I got into trucking was actually more of a 800 credit score, 21-year-old getting a lot of credit card offers and then wanting to share the love with my friends, at the bar, if I'm gonna be honest. It got a lot of credit card debt from doing too much buying, having a good time. I've always been a host. I've always wanted to, be a host of everyone and make sure everybody can be included and that kind of thing. And that got me in trouble. So had to get into trucking, or I chose to get into trucking because it was a way to make some pretty good money without the education before I finished college, right? So I actually dropped out of college my junior year to be a trucker. Would not recommend this, but I did what I did, and that's what got me in. Then my entrepreneur spirit, I've always been a question master. Always been curious about everything, and so I had the same curiosity while I was operating in the trucking industry. Had my own truck, so I was able to learn the business side of it, learn certain things, and so then when I got out of the truck, it only made sense to take what I've just spent 5 years learning and implement it. As far as what I should do going forward. It definitely wasn't the ideal choice at the time. It just kind of fell, and I think I would say most founders are in that camp where it wasn't necessarily a plan. It just fell in their lap in a way, or became by default what they knew best, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
Well, what we're trying to do is what else I know about the industry is there's a lot of poor culture situations in trucking. The workforce, it can create things like that. The leadership oftentimes comes from driving a truck, just like I do. But I keep, I hear drivers talk about how they get treated. I hear drivers talk about just horror stories, and I thought, man, the least I can do is go create something that's kicks all that away, right? And becomes something that is a great place to work, even though the trucking is hard. The industry is hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of exceptions. There's a lot of away time. There's a lot of things that come in. So let's find ways to make it great, even despite all those things. And then my most recent, the visionary part of it, where you're talking about revolutionizing the industry, legitimately trying to save marriages. And I say that salesy and legitimately. We have a very high divorce rate in our industry. And this issue we're tackling is actually the second cause of that is just it creates inconsistency in what a driver can promise their family. And that is really what pushes me to say there has to be a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is so just powerful what you're saying there, and I love how you are asking that, and essentially saying there has to be another way. There has to be another way to do this and to support everyone and their mental health as well as their families. And I think that I really felt like I want to ask you this question because you and I had talked about this when we talked a few weeks ago, where I experienced an incident of road rage, where it wasn't me, it was the driver that was kind of driving too close to me, and then I got kind of like, oh, what, I don't like that. So then I slowed down and I reacted as opposed to responded in that moment, and it was scary. It was scary, and I it ended up being fine. Like the guy and I actually ended up talking after I,
Right.
which I don't recommend that. I mean, but like
Right.
we, it's a long story short. I mean, I don't want to get into all the details, but like we talked about afterwards of like, I just don't, I feel like I don't know. There's a whole, I don't even know how to get into how we address that issue because I think it is so prevalent. There is so much of this reacting versus responding, and it's sometimes hard to remember there's someone behind the wheel. And also that it's something that it's just, I don't know. Like I think that even within that incident that day, and obviously it's like hard for me to talk about because I'm still kind of like it was a bit traumatizing. Um,
Yeah.
that it was happening all around us. Like I heard horns blaring like on the street. It was like a busy day,
Hmm.
wintry mix kind of day. People were stressed. It's like this is so prevalent, and I think it's an important thing to talk about. And I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think the part of the story that I want to make sure is told is the
Mhm.
reason you ended up talking and it being okay
Yeah.
is how you handled it when he walked up.
Yes, it was
You
scary.
changed from I'm going to teach you something or whatever it was at first to
Mhm.
I realize I'm sorry I realize, or when he said gave you detail you're like, oh, okay, I now understand why you're upset, and you understand why, so let's work. That's the human in us, right? I think that's our default brain.
Mhm. Mhm.
um some people, depending on what they've been through in their life, are going to not get to that default brain in that moment, and I would almost venture to say a lot of people, maybe even most.
Yeah.
And so that is what makes it scary. But when one person decides to take and be human about it, regardless of their emotion, it will help that other human, right? It will definitely help them. It doesn't guarantee you that they're going to come to your level, but it
Yeah.
does guarantee it's going to decline in some form or fashion almost all the time. And
Yeah.
I think being humble after the initial emotional reaction is still possible. And sometimes I feel that people get that emotional reaction and then they get a little bit of pride, or just the emotion gets so heavy that they forget what it would be like to be humble in that moment, and they miss it. And so
Mm-hmm.
We teach our drivers, we're driving semi truck. These things are 80,000 freaking pounds. Like, this is a serious situation. And there's no lesson going to be taught in that truck other than you're going to learn what it's like to go through a wicked court situation and be in jail, is really where we're at with if something goes wrong in our trucks. Um, we start with, hey, you don't know who's watching. First of all, even if you think it's innocent, you don't know who's watching. The one person you're doing it to is not the only witness. And we've the world is small. And so for a business perspective, it's like your name and our name is all over that truck. And if we get an opportunity later that would make you the best life you've ever had, if we had this one thing where you had got to drive this and this and go home every day at 5, but we lose it because some truck cut off the general manager of this place, and they're like, no, we're not going to hire that company. There's that aspect, right? That could, you just never know. And the world is the small world thing. Everyone has experienced over and over, and,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how small it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach that, and then thinking that that person isn't you. They're not you. So whatever you think about them is irrelevant.
Yep.
It's not important in the conversation.
Yep.
If you think they don't deserve, who do they think they are? Well, you're not going to know, so you might as well get over that question, right? And when you go to teach them something, oftentimes in an emotional state, all you're going to do, you're not going to teach them anything, right? Most of the time, I would argue, and I do not have facts on this, so be fair, but I would argue most of the time, the person doesn't even realize they did it.
Yeah.
That's what's
Mm-hmm.
the most important part, I feel, every time, is
Mm-hmm.
they don't
Mm-hmm.
even know what they did. How many times have you accidentally done something unkind to a motorist and felt guilty about it? Like, oh shoot, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
We do that. It happens enough. If you've been driving, more than about 5 minutes, it happens. Whether it's pull out in front of a motorcycle on accident. Oh my gosh, had to be so scary for that motorcycle guy. Whatever it might be, it happens.
Yep.
Remember that when you're mad at somebody. And then the equally important part of this, what's going on with them? Why did they just go from left lane on a 6 lane road, 3 lanes one direction, over to the off ramp and cut across your hood within 15 feet of you rear ending them, right? Why did they do that? Are they going to miss the interview of a lifetime? Are they rushing to the hospital because their loved one might be on their last minute? Are they, who knows what they're doing, right? And rather they're doing these crazy things because of something that wouldn't justify that crazy thing or not. That's really not what's important. It's
Yeah.
just giving grace, understanding. Are you the person that when you see a turn signal to get into your lane on a car that's in front of you 100 feet and you're coming up on them at a decent clip, are you the one that gasses on it? Or are you the one that relaxes and lets them in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Practice relaxing and letting them in. You will be where you're going one car length later. I mean, we're not
Absolutely.
talking about 10 minutes. We're talking about one car length later. And
Absolutely.
these are things we teach, because road rage is very easy in a big truck, because cars often do things to us that are very risky, and cause the driver to feel as though they have very little choices that are going to keep them out of a mess in that instant. That instant goes by really fast, but in that instant the emotion rises, and even as that instant passes within maybe 1 to 2 seconds, the emotion hangs out for a minute. And again, depending on your past and how much you've worked on working with your emotional intelligence, that can stay for a long time. It can go all day. For some people, it goes all week. They get on the phone, they tell one friend, they get another phone, and they tell the story over and over. So it just keeps that emotion rolling.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things to teach around that. And I think the biggest thing is just give grace and realize you don't know their life, and you definitely don't know their intention most of the time. Now, of course, if they give you 3 middle fingers and then do something that when before anything even happened, that's their intention, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
you still don't know their life. You still don't know their life. What if their mom passed away this morning? What if you just don't know? And of course, these are all worst case scenario type of stories, but I feel that's the point, is we don't know.
Yeah.
And until we pull over and talk to them and ask them, which fine, if you want to take that risk, go ahead. on every single time you get in a road rage thing, but you just don't know. It's kind of that easy, right? It's hard to get to that in a hot moment, but it is that easy, in my
It,
opinion.
it's very, I think this, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think it's something that we see so much. We have, all of us, I think, or most of us have observed some type of situation, but like none of us really talk about it. I mean, I know like with your training and with your employees, you make sure that you talk about these things, but like in the general public, like
Right.
we just don't necessarily have that emotional intelligence. And I think for me, it was a situation where I almost like and I'm trying to see if I can figure out a way to say it coherently, but like I was so scared because he kept following me. And then I'm like, okay, what do I do in this situation? So I had to essentially pull over, and I went to a public area, and somewhere where there would be other people around, and I said like, I'm so sorry, what did I do? So then I brought it down to that human level like you're talking
Right.
about. And then he said what he thought I did. I'm like, I had no idea, but thank you for letting me know. So it brought it down to human level. And I think so many times that would not be the case, like that would,
No.
I wouldn't recommend doing that. It was just that situation that then planted that seed in my head of like, why was I in this experience? Because why I think there's something that we need to talk about here, that we talk, that stuff like this almost like makes me think of like a bee in the car, like with your amygdala and your fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
And when you react as opposed to respond, like if there's a bee in the car, all you can think about is that bee, because it's a stinger. It's something that, like your fear center thinks is an issue, and it's overestimating the danger of a bee, but it's underestimating the danger of like distracted driving or whatever, because it's a primitive tool. And then you have to kind of like almost figure out, reset your brain almost. And that's a lot of like what I think, with society, we're so advanced, but yet we still have these primitive brains we're operating with. And how do
Yeah.
we
Right.
work with this primitive brain of ours? And anyway,
Yeah,
but
and what we focus on expands, right? It's pretty simple. What we
mhm,
focus on expands. And if we're focusing on revenge, we're focusing on teaching lessons when we don't know anything
mhm,
from which to teach the lesson from. It expands, and then it just and you can we have a pen every single day in our life to write our own story.
yeah, mhm,
And most humans tend to write stories not realizing they're looking at this from their perspective and their perspective only, not
absolutely,
reality. And it's a weird premise to think about, that you can't trust your brain to see reality, but it can be true in these moments, especially in emotional moments. It can be very true. And
yes,
when we step back and realize, hey, I am seeing these things based on who's taught me everything around me, or what I've experienced, or what I've observed, or what I've been through. And trauma is obviously the huge one that is still underrated. It needs to be, talked about more. And just understanding that, hey, my perspective is da 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 because of da 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 da. It's like, okay, so now I know next time that comes up, I can at least hopefully get to that thought fast enough to bring myself backwards. And it's just training. It's just thinking about it. It's reading books about it. It's getting to where we understand that we lie to ourselves a lot on accident. I mean, a lot. And I don't know how many everybody experiences they write the story of what happened, and then they have to, for one reason or another, they reassess, because they've got new information, right? It happens enough that's what woke me up, at least, is realizing how many times, I assume something, really. So, the what out of you and me thing is real. It's like, that's kind of how it comes to pass if you're not mindful. And again, when somebody told me you're lying to yourself half the day, kind of, for lack of a better term, I was like, no, I know what I'm doing. I don't know what you're doing, but I know what I'm doing, But once you realize that, I actually don't, I definitely don't know what they're doing, what anybody else is doing. You reserve judgment, you give more grace. So that's kind of I think I just got a little ADD on you there with that, but
no, I love
still,
it.
it's a
That's so true. I think that the grace, having that grace for other people, and because you don't, it's this different perspective, different set of glasses that everyone has, that as you're talking, Blake, it reminds me of like just even like when I lose a library book, which we do a lot, where we're like, where's this library book in the house? And like we're going through everything. It's, like searching everywhere, calling the library, saying like, I'm sorry, I
Yep.
don't know where it is, blah, blah. And then it ends up being right in front of me the whole time. It's like we have blinders on. And I think we believe so much of what we see, and so much of what we see is based on our own glasses and our own
Exactly right.
story.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly right. And if you're sitting there saying it's lost, that's
mhm,
why you're looking right over it.
yep.
What you focus on expands. And I think that is a very simple concept. And I've become borderline obsessed with neuroplasticity ever since the science has started to show what the even Bible says, right?
Mhm,
What
mhm,
you think you become. And
absolutely.
it's biblical. So 2000 plus years ago, they're seeing this and they write about it. They don't understand it all the way, but they
Mhm,
write about it. And now we have scientific measures to measure it and see it happen. And my favorite example is you can think about the thing you want, and if you close your eyes and you really visualize having it, or you're actually doing it and having it in real life, your brain actually has no idea the difference. And that's also hard to understand. Like you're when you think deeper into it, you understand the difference. But your brain's reactivity to the why you want it so bad, or the, whatever it is that's driving you to desire that. And then once you have it, it's the same.
mhm.
It's the same. It's different in the physical world. It's not different in the mental world. And once we understand that, we realize, man, our thoughts are super powerful. they they literally can control everything,
Oh yeah.
right? And
It's
and I think, go
mhm.
ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's wild. It's these mental highways that we travel on, and this like whatever that is, like everyone has kind of like a different mental highway, or maybe it's the same but different like perspective from it. But how do we kind of exit onto these back roads? How do we exit onto mindfulness, like you're saying, or gratitude or whatever? And it takes practice, it takes
It
baby steps.
does. It does. In education, for me personally,
Mhm.
I'm not a reader as much as I am a YouTube University attendee.
And that's great.
And
I love it.
that's if you find a credible people that are putting out credible content that's backed by, research and science, it's
Mhm.
everywhere. It's everywhere. Some of my favorites, Simon Sinek, the Start with Why author. Joe Dispenza is by far my favorite on neuroplasticity. He's unbelievable at orating and giving examples. And some of the things I'm mentioning here are actually stolen from him. So these people taught me and made me understand. Oh my gosh, like you really, and we've all experienced it. It's just once I had never connected like some scientific thought because I'm not, I didn't even pass biology, so I didn't scientific thought wasn't a thing for me until Joe Dispenza brought it to me in a way that it helped me understand it.
Mhm.
And then again, science, when there's science to back it, it makes me confident to sit here on a podcast that Lord knows who all we end up seeing and talk about it, because there's actual backing. It's not just a theory anymore, right? So
Oh,
it helps.
absolutely. I think that's so true. And I think the more we start talking about these things, the more it becomes like easier for other people to talk about, or talk, like, and when we spread information that's worth spreading, that's backed by evidence, that's backed by science, I think that's key. It's a game changer. And I love how you have that mission, Blake. Now, Blake, I would love for you to tell our audience, whoever's listening to this live or to the replay, tell us more about what your mission is. What are some things that are some challenges with the trucking industry, and how are you wanting to change that? And what else would you like to share with us?
Well, my forefront passion at the moment is our no dwell project. And
Mhm.
dwell time in trucking means when a truck's sitting in a dock waiting for freight to be taken on or off the trailer. And the driver's sitting there with the trailer, right? And they're waiting. And this kind of thing is a efficiency killer, and it's a morale killer, and just overall emotion killer, anxiety ridden situation because they just want to go. They get paid to roll. They don't get paid to load and unload. The industry has a solution that they're using, but it's the level of, you got to have a high volume facility. You got to have a lot of aspects to be able to invest in this historically. Um, So we're trying to find a way to bring that solution to all of the places that couldn't invest in it individually as a full boat service.
Mhm.
The long story short is 30% of a driver's ability to continue to earn money and produce is wasted every day, according to our American Trucking Research Institute that does really in-depth multi-year studies on these kind of things. 30% is a pretty big number. So what our goal is to take the thing we know that works, that fixes that 30%, and like I say, bring it to the rest of the people, the businesses, the carriers, the brokers, give them the option that they've never had to be able to utilize that efficiency to knock some of that 30% out, right? Maybe 20 to 25% of it is what we're seeing can happen. And we're just doing that by basically fractionalizing the trucks that we use to make that efficiency go. And it's just been something that hasn't really been talked about or thought about in our industry. Because a lot of our industry is kind of an is what it is. We've been doing this long time, legacy situation. Sorry about that noise. That shouldn't be very long.
No,
And our industry is slow to adopt technology, mainly because most of our players are pretty big, and then change management is hard, and so they just work with what they have. There's some people, some giant companies still working on MS DOS based systems or similar, really long time ago, like the early '90s, long time ago. And so the innovation, when things work, they work. But what
Mhm.
happens is a driver will get somewhere today to deliver tomorrow and have to wait, just hang around and wait till their appointment time tomorrow. And
Mhm.
then on top of that, it's like when we go to reload the truck, we don't make that appointment. Can you still hear me over that?
Yeah.
You okay? Okay.
Yeah.
We make that appointment um, to pick up hours and hours after the delivery, just in case the delivery takes forever. Then we don't fail that pickup. And so we build in all this inefficiency because the unknowns of the live transfer of goods off these trailers. So
Mhm.
what we're trying to do is basically eliminate that. And just to give you the grand big vision of what that is the facilities just have the carrier's trailer there already, so they can do the work without the trucker there. Then the trucker brings them another trailer, unhooks it, hooks to the one they did the work on that trucker came there to, get loaded, and they just pull right on out of there in 15 minutes versus an average of 2 to 6 hour situation. It's a huge, huge savings.
Oh yeah.
So we're building technology. We're in the middle of a angel investor capital raise. So that's not that this is the place I was trying to pimp that, but you ask, that's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
It's
We're trying to raise some
awesome.
money to build the software to facilitate this fractionalization of these assets. And so if anybody's interested in that, please reach out. And, if they want to learn more about it, period, they do not have to be an angel investor. We'd love to share what we're trying to do. The more the merrier that know. And that way, when we get it done, we can blast it out there and say we're doing it. We are actually doing this in Kansas City. So any truck companies or anything like that is doing business in Kansas City, we can help them now. We don't need the technology to do the job. The technology just helps us get it to the market faster to get the solution out there. And this is going to reduce retention or increase retention rates. It's going to increase profitability, increase overall gross revenue, increase productivity, definitely increase service, on time service. It's got a lot of pluses, and then save marriages.
Mhm.
Minor detail.
Minor detail, right?
Keep
Oh,
them families together. Yeah.
that's amazing. Where can we learn more about it? I have your website down here. Is this the correct link
Yeah.
that I have on the banner? Is
Yeah,
that
that's it.
okay? Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Spot On is our trucking company and yard management company, which yard management is the umbrella industry service that we're fractionalizing. And then NoDwell is so new that it's just a billboard website right now. We're still kind of
Okay.
getting there on that. So yeah, that is where they can find me, or here on LinkedIn. Just connect with me here on LinkedIn. I'd be glad. I love sitting down, talking, connecting, and on the mindset stuff too. Hey, I want to give back. I've been able to transform my life around what I've learned and changed who I am in a lot of ways. And so I always want to share that stuff if there's more detail, or if somebody has a specific what if or something like that. Not that I'm the expert, not that I've studied it other than just YouTube and doing it. So, but I would offer, anybody who feels like they're stuck in that, I'd love to help.
Yeah, I love talking with you, Blake. I think I just really enjoy the conversations, and I think that this the genuine like we want to help have these conversations, and I love having these conversations with you and learning more about it. Like this is all very new to me, the trucking industry, and Blake, I have to say, uh, ever since like I started talking with you, I think of the Cars movie, and was it the
Oh no, great movie, fantastic movie.
I love that scene. My favorite scene of the movie is when he drives across the country with that song, and it's all the different parts of the country. And
Yeah,
talking about that part of the movie, I don't remember who was. Anyway, it's just like scenes of California, the Midwest,
yep,
and the East Coast. And for me, I love traveling. I love doing those things, seeing the country. But even like, and I'm not driving. I'm not doing these things all nearly as much, but I know even when I do it just for a short amount of time, it's lonely. It can be lonely,
yeah.
and it can add weight, a mental weight. And so I think that's so powerful what you're doing, because that is such an important conversation to have and for truck drivers. So thank you for all that you're doing and for trying to have solutions for this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for acknowledging that and having me here. And just remember when you're in the car going short distance, you're not going to gain anything by
Mhm.
trying to do 5, 10, 15 mile an hour faster if you're just going a few exits down the highway when somebody's in your way. It's not you're not gaining anything. You have to be on a 800-mile road trip to actually see like gains that matter when with miles per hour or with nobody in your left lane. It doesn't gain much. And then that trucker that you're mad at, um, I promise you, they're on the gas pedal. They just got a lot of freight in there. It's hard to climb hills. It's hard to maneuver. A lot of times we can't move over to let you off on the on ramp because of the fact that there's somebody next to us. But by the time you get behind us and then you get to the left lane, there's nobody next to us because they've gone on now, right? Just think about those things before you get mad at the trucker. And remember that everything you ever consume, look at, feel, touch, other than like a forest, a virgin forest, was on a truck. Your grass was on a truck. It was sod or it was a seed. Everything was on a truck. So we're important, and it does. We're moving the world's largest economy, and we're sorry that we're slow. That's all. We're sorry that we're slow. We're in the way a lot, but it is important. So just kind of be mindful of that. Is like my little PSA for our industry.
I love that. Can you, so Blake, can you repeat that one more time? Because I think that is so important. And I love, and thank you for everyone for making comments. Jackie said something that I want to highlight here because she said, we developed a high respectability for truck drivers as they helped many people during our recent snowstorm and storm. They made sure we had food on our tables, respect to all the truck drivers. I thought that was such a beautiful comment. And thank you
That
for everyone
is.
else with all your comments too.
Oh my gosh.
But it is so important. And thank you for all that you're doing.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, I think just realizing that they have most likely 5, 6, 700 miles to run that day,
Mhm.
and the reason that they're taking the left lane and taking 2 miles to make a pass on a truck that's going 1 mile an hour slower than they are or whatever, they're just trying to make their time and trying to get where they can go. They're restricted by a GPS monitored logging device, so they don't really have flexibility in a lot of times, and so they got a long way to go when you're just trying to get to the 3 exits to Walmart or whatever. It's a lot different. And again, it's math. It's math. The mentality I totally understand. I used to be there. I'm going to get there. I'm going to weave in and out. I'm going to get there. You're not going to save more than a minute if it's a 10-minute drive. There's no way unless you're going to literally go 150 miles an hour. And so just realizing that might help you say, okay, this is not that big a deal for me right now. This really isn't. Um, Even if it is an appointment that you're late to, we're talking about seconds in most cases when it comes to that stuff. So just to kind of help people just not write the story, if you will, to be way worse than it really is for them is something that's I hope folks can take away.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. Thank you for that reminder because it is just a couple of seconds a
Hmm.
difference. And
Yeah, in the end, it really is. Yeah,
yeah,
it doesn't feel that way in the moment, and that's okay. Like
moment.
acknowledge that. That's cool. That's cool because I still think it. What are you doing in my left lane going 65 when it's 65 speed limit? You know,
Yeah.
uh, Not for very long though. That thought is like, what are you doing in my? Let me just slow down. Let me just give him a little space. You'll get there. With practice, you'll get there, and you'll find a lot of peace in that too. I believe.
Yes, with practice, you'll get there, and that exercise. I think that's so key.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Hmm.
yep, tolerating that, the difficulty, that difficult feeling, and
Yeah.
it'll pass. It'll
Yeah,
pass.
and it's normal. You know, all these early emotions are normal, but we emotional intelligence. Count to five. Just every time you get any kind of like blah, count to five and watch what happens. Just watch what happens. Don't say a word till you count to five, and your words will change. Maybe every word you're going to say might change.
So true, so true.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, Blake, I thank you. I want to thank you again for being on here. I feel like I can talk with you all day, and I would love for everyone who's listening to this live or to the replay to check out everything that Blake has to offer. Check out his website as well as connect with him on LinkedIn. He's amazing. And I hope you have a wonderful day, Blake, and I hope everyone who's listening out there does as well.
Same to you, Valerie. You are amazing as well. Doing the podcast on this exact thing is so important to put content out there. This is one of those things we could find on a YouTube or a like and listen to learn. And so what you're doing matters a lot. And you're hosting it. You're making it happen weekly, it seems. So that's amazing. So thank you for what you're doing as well.
Thank you so much, Blake.
All right.